Good morning, everybody. It's Pastor John with another edition of Monday Morning Quarterback. This is our special day after Easter edition of Monday Morning Quarterback. So yesterday we obviously talked about the story of the resurrection. We read from Matthew's Gospel where the two Marys show up and they are told by the angel that Jesus has risen, and they are to go tell the disciples, and they will meet Jesus, all these things. And then he says something very interesting. He says, and they left with fear and great joy. And we talked about that, what that meant to have both fear and great joy as a result of the resurrection. And that's what we talked about during the sermon. But it's important that we recognize, first of all, that Easter is the holiest day on the Christian calendar. It is the day that changed history. It is the day that turned the world as we know it upside down, or maybe it turned the world right side up. So we are right on Easter to give it a special celebration. We are right to kind of pull out all the stops and really celebrate in a special way that signifies that this is an important day in the life of the church. However, in our celebration, it's important to remember that Easter is not just a one-time event. It did happen. It was a one-time event that happened 2,000 years ago. However, that one-time event changed the world that we know now. And now Easter is the shape of the reality in which we live. Let me explain. During the sermon, I shared a quote from Nadia Bolz-Weber in her book, Pastrix, The Cranky, Beautiful Faith of a Sinner and Saint. I love that title. But from that book, she wrote this: the Christian faith, while wildly misrepresented in so much of American culture, is really about death and resurrection. It's about how God continues to reach into the graves we dig for ourselves and pull us out, giving us new life in ways both dramatic and small. And that's the part that I think is important for us to recognize as we think of resurrection only in terms of Jesus in the tomb. But Jesus in the tomb is an event that serves as a signpost that God has changed reality altogether. So resurrection then becomes our pattern of living. That's why we in the church, we celebrate Easter as a special day, but we consider all Sundays resurrection days. For those of you who give things up for Lent, give up chocolate or meat or something like that, you don't have to give up those things on the Sundays, because the Sundays don't count during the season of Lent. And it's not that they don't count because we're just giving you, the church is, kind of giving you a loophole, a break. They don't count because Sundays are always Resurrection Sundays. So whatever you're experiencing throughout the week, you always come to that Sunday, and it's Resurrection Sunday. And that is literally our weekly reminder of the pattern of life that Christ has initiated at Easter. The church has often called itself Easter people. And that is because, well, Christ's ministry and all of those things started a movement. It was Easter and later Pentecost that gave that movement life and spirit and movement. The hope that Nadia Bolz-Weber expressed in her book, that is the hope that was revealed at the first Easter. It's not a one-time hope. It's a pattern of living hope, and we see it in large ways and in small ways. The question is not, does resurrection happen? The question is, do we recognize it for what it is? If you read the resurrection accounts in the Bible, you often have disciples not really getting it, even though they're in the middle of it. You know, there's the famous story of Jesus walking with two disciples on the road to Emmaus. They don't even know it's Jesus until the end of the walk. And then you have Jesus meeting with his disciples along the beach. They're not quite sure who he is until there's the breaking of the bread. And there's that common, that common life together, that celebration over the bread. And then they recognize. You see, this pattern has all been laid out for us to see. It's not something, I'm making up. This is the pattern that the Gospels reveal. Resurrection is all around us. Christ is risen. Christ is risen. And because of that, resurrection is all around us. And some days it's going to be these huge events of redemption that everyone notices. And some days it's going to be something small that maybe only we and another person see. But it's all the same pattern of living. The Christian faith, while wildly misrepresented in so much of American culture, is really about death and resurrection. It's about how God continues to reach into the graves we dig for ourselves and pull us out, giving us new life in ways both dramatic and small. Happy Easter, my friends. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Have a wonderful week. God bless.